Welcome back to our lesson on coordination, the linking system. In our previous video, we have learnt about the nerve cell, types of nerves, and the reflex arc. Next, we have to study about the nervous system. The nervous system has three main functions. One is the sensory input, second one is the integration of data, that is processing, and third one is the motor output. Sensory input, integration of data, and motor output are the three main functions of the nervous system. Sensory input is when body gathers information by way of neurons and synapses. There are sensory receptors which carry signal to neurons, and these neurons communicate with each other via synapses. The second function is the integration of data. Information is carried to the brain where processing will take place. After the brain processes the information, impulses are then conducted from brain and spinal cord to the muscles and glands. This is called the motor output, which is the third function of the nervous system. So, the nervous system is comprised of two major parts. We have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Let us study in detail about the central nervous system. The central nervous system consists of the brain and spinal cord. It controls most functions of the body and mind like awareness, movements, sensations, thoughts, speech, and memory. The spinal cord is a long, thin, tubular bundle of nervous tissues that extends from the brainstem and continues down the center of the back up to the pelvic region. So, let us first understand the brain, which is a part of the central nervous system. Brain is the control center of the whole body. It makes up only 2% of the body's weight, but it uses much more energy. Brain controls mental processes. It interprets information and commands the body how to respond. And it also controls physical processes, which may be voluntary or involuntary. The brain is present in a hard, bony, box-like structure called the cranium. Cranium gives protection to the brain, which is a sensitive, soft tissue. There are membranous coverings on the brain, and these are called meninges. There are 3 layers of meninges. These layers, they extend up to the spinal cord also. The meninges have spaces between them, and those spaces are filled with a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. This fluid protects the brain against shock and mechanical stress. The brain consists of gray matter and white matter. What is gray matter? What is white matter? Let us see. Nerve cell bodies together with capillaries form the gray matter. It is mostly present towards the periphery, that is, towards the outside. White matter consists of myelinated axons, and white matter is present towards the center. Let us look at the parts of the brain. The 3 major parts of the brain are the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. What is the forebrain? The forebrain is made up of the olfactory lobes, cerebrum, and the diencephalon. Olfactory lobes are club-shaped bodies which are visible from the ventral surface of the brain. Ventral surface is the underside of the brain. They are concerned with the sense of smell. Cerebrum is the uppermost part of the brain. It consists of two cerebral hemispheres. The surface of the cerebrum has many folds. There are elevations called gyri and depressions called sulci. Each hemisphere is divided into four lobes: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe. The two hemispheres are connected by a thick bundle of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. It ensures that both sides of the brain can communicate with each other. What are the functions of the cerebrum? It is the site of mental abilities. It controls thinking, memory, reasoning, perception, emotions, and speech. It interprets sensation. Sensation means touch, vision, hearing, and it responds to hot, cold, pain, and pressure. These are the functions of the cerebrum. The next part is the diencephalon. It is a part of the forebrain. It lies between the cerebrum and the midbrain. It consists of thalamus and hypothalamus. Let us look at the functions of the diencephalon. It is a relay center for sensory impulses such as pain, temperature, and light. It is a reflex center for muscular activities. It is a center for certain emotions. It is a center for water balance, blood pressure, body temperature, sleep, and hunger. Hypothalamus of the diencephalon controls the pituitary gland, which is the master gland. The next part of the brain is the midbrain. Next major part, it is also called mesencephalon. It is a small, thick, stalked portion. It connects forebrain with cerebellum and pons of the hindbrain. The midbrain has optic lobes which are involved in vision. Functions of the midbrain: it relays motor impulses from cerebrum to spinal cord. It relays sensory impulses from spinal cord to thalamus, and it has reflexes for sight and hearing. The third part of the brain is the hindbrain. Hindbrain consists of the cerebellum and medulla oblongata and the pons. Cerebellum is located below the cerebrum and above the medulla oblongata. It consists of two cerebellar hemispheres. Functions of this is to maintain posture, equilibrium, and muscle tone. It coordinates voluntary movements initiated by the cerebrum. What is the medulla oblongata? This part extends from pons to the spinal cord. Medulla oblongata has grey matter and white matter, but here the grey matter and white matter change position. Grey matter is found inside and white matter is found outside, unlike that of the brain. Processing of in the medulla and spinal cord has to be done internally. So, cell body of the neuron concentrates inside the spine, which becomes the grey matter, and axons have to transfer messages, so they form the white matter which is on the outside. What are the functions of the medulla? It contains center for respiratory and vasomotor activities. Vasomotor activities are it is the action on blood vessels. It coordinates reflexes like swallowing, coughing, sneezing, and vomiting. These are the functions of medulla. The second part of the central nervous system is the spinal cord. It extends from the back of the hindbrain, that is the medulla oblongata. It passes through a canal in the vertebral column, and the canal is known as neural canal. This spinal cord extends up to the lumbar region. It is almost cylindrical in shape. Here too, the gray matter is towards the center and white matter is towards the periphery, that is outside. Myelinated axons leave the spinal cord from both sides of the vertebral column. Let us look at some of the functions of the spinal cord. It forms a connecting link between the brain and the peripheral nervous system. It provides structural support. It facilitates flexible movements. And it communicates messages from brain to different parts of the body. It coordinates reflexes. And it receives sensory information from receptors and approaches the brain for processing. So these are the functions of the spinal cord. Let us try to understand the peripheral nervous system. We know that nerves arise from the spinal cord. Please look at the cross section of the spinal cord. You can observe that nerves are connected by two types of roots. There are dorsal roots. Dorsal is the back side, and there are ventral roots, which is the front side. Ventral side is the front side. Nerves are attached to the spinal cord by dorsal roots and ventral roots. Two scientists, Charles Bell and Francois Magendie, conducted experiments and showed that these roots have different functions. Let us find out. If the dorsal roots were cut in an animal, the animal made no reaction. But if the ventral roots were even touched, the connected muscle would twitch violently. Thereby, it was confirmed that ventral root controlled muscular activity. Now, these scientists, they suggested that dorsal roots carried messages of sensation inwards and ventral roots carried messages outwards for muscular contraction. Thus, the peripheral nervous system is a vast system of dorsal and ventral root nerve cell heads and a network of spinal and cranial nerves that are linked to the brain and spinal cord on one end and muscles on the other end. The peripheral nervous system has involuntary control and voluntary control. Involuntary control helps in the functioning of internal organs, blood vessels, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. For example, if the heart has to pump blood continuously, the muscles of the heart, that is the cardiac muscles, must work continuously. This is under the involuntary control of the peripheral nervous system. Since it controls involuntary function, peripheral nervous system is also called autonomous nervous system. Another example of involuntary function is the reduction and expansion of pupil in the eye. When we enter a dark room, we cannot see anything immediately. Slowly we begin to see things. This is because the diameter of the pupil has increased, allowing more light to enter into the eye. When we come out of the dark room, our pupil decreases, allowing less light to enter into the eye. We already have studied that the medulla oblongata in the brain regulates heartbeat, breathing, etc., helping in the activities of the internal organs. Such involuntary actions take place by the coordinated efforts of medulla oblongata and the autonomous nervous system. Now, the autonomous nervous system is made up of sympathetic nerves and parasympathetic nerves. The sympathetic nervous system controls the fight or flight response in the body. They prepare the body for acting in threatening situations for survival. The sympathetic nervous system prepares the body for intense physical activity. The parasympathetic nervous system controls rest and digest or feed and breed activities. Their action is complementary to the action of sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system relaxes the body and inhibits or it controls, it stops high energy function. The sympathetic nervous system is formed by a chain of ganglia. Ganglia is nerves on either side of the vertebral column. The parasympathetic nervous system is formed by nerves arising from ganglia of brain and posterior part of the spinal cord. Please have a look at how the organs are influenced by the sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Coordination in the body can happen without nerves. Let us see how. Paul Langerhans, a professor of pathology, was working on pancreas. He noticed some cells which were different in appearance. They were different from normal tissue cells and were rich in blood supply. These were called islets of Langerhans. Experiments revealed that if the pancreas is removed, it would lead to a disease called diabetes. Diabetes is a condition where extra glucose remains in the blood and is excreted in the urine. Another experiment was conducted where pancreatic duct was tied. This allowed the pancreas to degenerate, but the islets of Langerhans would remain normal. Such an animal where the duct is tied would not develop diabetes. So from these experiments, it was understood that levels of glucose in the blood is linked to islets of Langerhans. Later studies showed that islets produced a secretion called insulin. This secretion is directly into the bloodstream. So this proves that apart from the nervous system, there is another system which is the endocrine system, which helps in control and coordination. The scientists Toronto, Banting, Best and MacLeod, they extracted insulin from degenerate animal pancreas. When insulin was injected into a dog with no pancreas, the dog was healthy and alive with low levels of glucose. So from this we understand that hormones are chemical coordinators synthesized in glands called endocrine glands. They are secreted into nearby cells and they are carried by blood to other parts of the body. Sometimes actions of the body are controlled by hormones and coordinated by the nervous system. Nervous system and endocrine system work together. The best example is the hormone adrenaline. Adrenaline is secreted by the adrenal gland. When confronted by a dangerous situation or during stress, adrenaline is secreted and the body changes its course of action. The body will either fight or move away from the situation. Thus, adrenaline is also called fight or flight hormone. Hormone levels are controlled by feedback mechanisms. Levels of adrenaline will come back to normal slowly. Otherwise, if it remains in excess in the bloodstream, then other metabolic activities will be disturbed. Similarly, if sugar levels are high, then there is more insulin. The pancreas will secrete more amount of insulin. If sugar levels come back to normal, then insulin secretion is also reduced. So, feedback mechanism is the mechanism that regulates the production and release of hormones. The timing and amount of the hormone is controlled by this feedback system.